Welcome to the If You Can Dream It podcast, the podcast series where we not only talk about the latest theme park news, rides, and attractions, but we also create them. My name is Joe, and I'll be your host throughout this podcast experience. And welcome to another test episode. Yay, we're having more test episodes. But thankfully today, I'm not alone like I was for the last one. No, I do actually have a bunch of guests here today. Guests that have kindly decided to lend their lovely voices to help this podcast grow a little bit. So, friends, why don't you guys introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Smokin. My home park is Kings Island.
Hi, I'm Roxanne. My closest home park is Canopy Lake Park in New Hampshire, but I am a big Disney fan.
Awesome. We do actually have a couple of news stories that came out a couple of weeks ago. We're a little behind the trend on that one, but you know what? They're timely classics. So let's jump into some general track talk, shall we? So our first news story that we're going to be covering today are a couple of changes coming to the Disney park reservation system as well as our park hopper system. So starting on January 9th, park hopper will become an all-day thing again. So prior to the pandemic, that was more or less the case where if you wanted to park hop anytime you could, but coming back from the pandemic, you can only park hop after 2 o'clock. Well, starting on January 9th, that'll be an all-day thing. So hooray for that. Hooray for park hopping. This joins along the previously announced updates to the reservation system, like if you bought a dated ticket or dated vacation pass or anything, you no longer have to make park reservations, which is great for some people, not great if you're an annual pass holder or a cast member pass holder, as you still have to make those reservations for those parks. However, also starting on that January 9th date, there will be specific days for annual pass holders as well as cast member pass holders to have a no park reservation day called the good to go days. So what do you guys think about that a little bit? Are you guys happy about the changes coming to that park hopping reservation system as well as the park reservation system in general, or do you think it's just time for it to go away?
For me, as we kind of discussed a little bit before this, is that I had the stamina to do all day park hopping, so waiting till 2 o'clock and the long lines, stuff like that, and I could go all night. But yeah, and then with reservations, I mean, it really depends. I mean, I get why they did it, Disney did it, so they can keep track of like numbers and things like that and all the logistics. But like I said, if you're a pass holder or a cast member, your days are really limited and things like that. So I can see how it can be a pain.
Yeah. There are days that even being a cast member, just trying to find a day like, oh cool, I want to go to Hollywood Studios. Nope, can't do it. Oh cool, I want to go to Magic Kingdom. Nope, can't do it. But there's always Animal Kingdom, sometimes Epcot. It's just time to go. I think this is Disney's kind of cue of saying, hey, we're pretty late to the party, so we're just going to start slowly taking this out from you guys.
I
Yeah.
wonder if part of the reason that they were keeping it for so long wasn't just COVID protocols, that maybe it started that way, but they were realizing that it was really beneficial for staffing, and that's part of why the park hopping is something that they've eased up on, because they don't need to worry about, all right, well, we can lose a few cast members at Epcot because we have more reservations at Magic Kingdom that day, things like that, because if all of the parks are staffed, then it doesn't matter how many visitors are in each one, as long as you've got enough people to run it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that was more of a case once they were just coming back from the pandemic. As of right now, again, parks, depending on the day you go, are going to be less crowded than others. Magic Kingdom is going to be crowded all day. Hollywood Studios, that's a little bit better. But like with Epcot and Animal Kingdom, those two parks are definitely going to see that flux of people coming and going. The only thing that are probably keeping them there at those parks are going to be those virtual queues for both Tron Like Cycle Run as well as Guardians over in Epcot.
For sure. I mean, I, I, s- I don't know. For me, it's hit or miss with the 2 p.m. thing. Like I said, it can be a logistics thing. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate as
Yeah.
well.
No, I think you're pretty on the. I think we're all pretty much agreeing. Yeah, it's a staffing as well as a crowd controlled measure, which I believe they are seeing the ups and downs and seeing the bigger picture. And I think I kind of want to say the way they're phasing it and for the data tickets to have those reigns first is a little bit more beneficial because that way they still have that controlled resource and controlled supply for how many people are in the park per day. So I do see that in a business sense as working in their favor. However, it is more or less going to be pissing off annual pass holders as well as other pass holder types.
Yeah, and I have to figure, and I'm not a Disney executive. I don't know how they think, but I would guess that the benefit that they were seeing, especially immediately coming out of the pandemic, of that predictability, of that crowd control, that they're losing enough of the benefit, like it's not making as much of a difference that they're saying, okay, well, you know what? We're not getting as much out of this as we will by just letting people show up when they want to show up. So it's time to go. Like that cost benefit has just swung back around into the other direction.
Alrighty. With that, we're gonna jump over to our next news story. And friends, I know that Halloween just more or less ended.
It never ends, Joe.
It never ends. Good news if you're a Las Vegas resident or plan on visiting the Las Vegas area anytime soon. Universal Studios has got you covered. They had announced an all year round Halloween Horror Nights attraction heading into the Area 15 Entertainment District in Vegas. Area 15 is where Meow currently has its Omega Mart. Well, recently they just announced its name, which is called Universal's Horrors Unleashed. Now, they said that more or less all the things that we've gotten for it is the name of it and how potentially it will work. It looks like they're going to be having at least 4 houses, and those houses will be changed out seasonally. They'll also incorporate their tribute store that they have in Universal Orlando, and they will also include a themed bar for the area. And that should be heading more or less to the Las Vegas area around 2025. So about the same time that Epic Universe is opening over here in Orlando.
I am
Yeah.
so excited to see what this looks like. I love Halloween and I love Halloween Horror Nights. I'm a big fan of just the level of quality that they invest into it. They look good and making it well themed and making all of the pieces fit, and to have something that's like a bespoke space essentially, not just trying to squeeze things into the studio spaces that they have hanging around at the Hollywood and Florida parks. I think they can do something really spectacular. So I'm really excited to see it, and the fact that they can also run them seasonally for a 4, 5, 6 month run, like they can really go big.
I can't see them really like losing people to actually come into that area and experience that entertainment, especially with the rerunability of it. Did any of you guys go to any of your local haunts this year or Halloween Horror Nights in general this year?
No, I did not, unfortunately.
I did go to Universal Florida's Halloween Horror Nights.
Now, was that just one time you went, or were you able to go multiple times? I know for myself, ended up going multiple times for Halloween Horror Nights.
So I typically go just once a year. It's too expensive a trip to make it in such a short amount of time, which is why I would have to guess that if they're rotating the houses and themes seasonally and the Horror Nights Unlimited space, I can't see them doing it more often than on a 4 to 6 month basis, because I think there's a really limited number of people that you're gonna get there, 3 or 4 times a year to experience the different houses. And I think there are people who would do that, but that's a big ask of, an audience that you want to have return.
Yeah, I think like with Vegas, you can only rely so much on the locals. 'Cause, like if you like, let's just say for Florida Hollywood, they had the haunted houses year round, the locals kind of get tired of it, and you're really relying on tourists to come in and do it. So they would definitely have to rotate it out. And like I said, they haven't said like that timetable, whether it be 3-4 months, 2 3 weeks, who the hell knows. But yeah, they would have to find a way to rotate out, not only to get the tourists but the locals as well.
Yeah, they might need to take a page out of Disney's playbook and keep any one of those mazes like more or less permanent, just changed up here and there, just so that people who run Horror Nights religiously or are able or come back more frequently are able to have that re-runnability of those mazes or whatnot. Especially when they're talking about bringing new specific things to the event. I know in the press release they did mention about bringing potentially Blumhouse properties, James Wan properties, like the Conjuring films, their horror classic icons, as well as icons they made exclusively for Halloween Horror Nights over in
And then
Florida.
I wonder,
Yeah,
like, for the like Blumhouse and stuff like that. I wonder if they would have those houses in Vegas while they also in Hollywood and Florida.
I have a feeling that if they were going to play this right, Vegas would be a testing ground for a couple of houses they bring out to Hollywood and Orlando for the actual Horror Nights event. Basically, make this a workshop.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea either, because I'm sure that I don't know how big that space is, but you can go, okay, we have this much space. The house would be this size. Okay, this was great in this part of the house. Now, when we take it to Florida or Hollywood, we can expand this to make it this big and add this and that. I mean, like you said, it won't be a bad workshop space, really.
Oh yeah, it would not be a bad workshop place at all. So considering how large that space is, considering it's not going to be part of that initial Area 15 entertainment district, it's going to be its own like annex space. So that's going to be one of like the tent poles of the new like expansion pad for that Area 15 expansion. So they have space to run with. So I'm going to be super interested in when that opens up.
yeah. I think the amount of space and the fact that it is in Las Vegas, I wouldn't be surprised if they do a couple of things. One of those being having one or two really large, impressive houses, like the Dead Man's Wakes type, where there are larger set pieces. They might be longer walkthroughs, things like that, like the really big, impressive ones that they usually put in that
Yeah.
larger studio space in Orlando, and have a couple others that are smaller, and that they can rotate more easily. But I don't think they can rely as much on local attendance, just for the fact that it's
Yeah.
in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's in a desert. It's not that, Las Vegas doesn't have people who live there, but it's not the kind of population density you get in the Orlando, Kissimmee, and surrounding area within like an hour's drive. Within an hour's
Oh
drive
yeah.
of
Yeah.
Las Vegas is
It's
really nothing.
it's all
Yeah.
Uh,
turtles.
but I would also assume that they would have a some kind of pass program, not necessarily an annual pass, but like a number of visits pass. I think that would actually bump the revenue up a little bit, because you could charge an annual pass price essentially, but you can visit here 4 times this year rather than a just sort of amorphous, oh, I can go whenever I want, and then maybe you go another once or twice.
Then I wonder though if like what's the top tier Universal Pass that allows you to go to Hollywood and Florida, whatever tier that is. I wonder if that top tier would work for this uh Universal Horrors Unleashed.
Yeah, I totally see that. Yeah, so more or less reintroducing their frequent fear or rush of fear passes more or less into that aspect. I could totally see that happening. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting, especially to see what they do with that space. Also with the tribute store they have there, because I know that each year for the tribute stores here, it's themed. So I wonder if that tribute store would also be changing, or if it'll be more like a permanent, like here's your freak show, or here is your generalized theme, and then just switch out the merchandise like every some odd months whenever they either redo a maze, or they reincorporate a new horror icon, we'll say. I can totally see that being like a cool hangout spot, even if it's just going in the tribute store and stuff, because I know like anytime I'm in the theme park and the tribute store happens to be open, I'll happen to walk into it because it's just one of those cool environments we want to look at every single detail, just for how intricate those doors are.
Yeah, I think they could also get away with doing something more along the lines of, you know, I think it's also called Universal Tribute Store, but it's the larger store at the end of Universal Florida's City Walk area. And it's not the studio
Oh,
store. It's the one on the other side that has like the film props and stuff.
oh yeah, the Legacy store.
Where
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes, Legacy store. That thank you. Um
You're welcome. You're welcome. I was like, what store are you talking about?
that one is a great environment and it doesn't change. But they have things that like make it really special and interesting and the merchandise rotates out. So I think they could also do something like that, something that's highly themed, but still permanent, but they can swap out the merchandise as the houses swap
Yeah.
as well. So they can make permanent spaces that are really cool looking and fun to be in, because I go into that Legacy store every single time. I love it. I know I've seen everything in it, but it's my favorite store in the park, and it's not even in the park yet.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait till 2025 hits when that is actually open. That's going to be insane to visit. So, jumping over to our next news story, and this is about something that happened recently. So, recently, Six Flags as well as Cedar Point decided to actually merge their two companies. So, their new company would go under the Six Flags name. Their new company worth around the board would be around $3.5 billion, and they would operate around 27 amusement parks, 15 water parks, and 9 resorts across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, and they have a huge portfolio of IPs they're working with. So Looney Tunes, DC Comics, and the Peanuts. What's your guys' take on that? Like, I remember Six Flags as a kid when I was back in Colorado with Elitch Gardens and stuff. However, I haven't really been to many Parks attractions. I know that's Stogie, you have been. So, what's your guys' takes on those? Like on this merger, what do you think about it? Do you think it's gonna start as a good thing for the parks, or do you think it's a bad thing considering that both Six Flags and Cedar Point do have some parks that are more or less battling for territory in some
I think
states?
it'll be great when it comes to the theming because, like, Kings Island, way back when, it was owned by Paramount. So we had like Italian Job theme ride, Top Gun, um, Face Off, all that kind of stuff, and and oh, and then we had Tomb Raider with based on Angelina Jolie's movie. And so we were like, oh, this is gonna be the next Universal, next Disney, and then they bought out and we lost all these IPs. Now the rides just seem so plain and boring. So maybe with DC Comics coming in, be like, oh, we can, the suspended curse of the bat, we can call that something else, make it cool, whatever, put it more theming. Because right now, since they don't have any properties other than the Peanuts, only the Kidland is themed. Everything else is just there, really. There's very few rides, at least at Kings Island, that are heavily themed. So I think this will bring some more theming options.
I'm not terribly familiar with Cedar Fair parks because I don't think there are any near me, honestly. I live in New England, and I'm pretty sure that the closest are in Ohio. Like they're a very Midwesty sort of thing. Um, unless I am wrong. Please correct me if I am.
No, they're mostly
Uh,
Midwestern. Yeah, there's some outliers, but
and Six Flags are pretty spread out to the best of my knowledge. The only Six Flags location I have ever been to is Six Flags New England, which is not impressive. And it's sort of been
I,
on a long, slow downhill. The last time I went, I think like half of the coasters were running because they just didn't have enough people to actually operate them. And this was in August. So like last August, I think. Yeah, prime uh theme park period in New England where you have a pretty limited amount of time during which you can actually run a theme park. Um So I think anything that allows like maybe some of those, the Six Flag New Englands of the world, I'm sure that Six Flags has other parks that have kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. Cedar Fair probably does too, just by virtue of how many there are and how spread out they are. So anything that can help sort of bolster these parks up and give them a little bit more to work with, more money or more marketing or more labor, anything like that. As far as theming goes, this does open up a wider catalog of IP for both of them. I don't think that anywhere in the US has really worked with Looney Tunes in a way that they could. And they've had the property for so long and have done really so little with it. And you look at, I think it's in, is it in Dubai that Warner Brothers land is?
Yeah, that's Abu Dhabi, Warner Brothers World. That's
Yes.
the park that my friend Dave Cobb worked on.
Yes. Like that, doing something like that with Looney Tunes is so smart, and they just haven't had the capital and the wherewithal to do that in the States with the parks that have the property for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree because uh, of the limited parks I've visited for Six Flags, it was been my home park, which was Elitch Gardens, like way back in the day, and that used to be Six Flags Elitch Gardens. Then Magic Mountain, would believe the other would be the other one that was in California, and then Knott's. That's my only real distinction to any of the Cedar Fair, Cedar Point parks that I visited, more or less.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard some things, kind of what Roxanne was saying about Six Flags parks kind of falling apart. It seems like, because I know I watched a couple vloggers that do like the California parks, would be Disneyland, Knott's, um, or Magic Mountain. It seems like there's might be some neglect, more or less, whether it be certain rides not running, they just being shut down for a long time, or they start projects, they never finish them, or there's too much in the air. But I feel like, I mean, again, I've never been to a Six Flags park, and I don't really follow Six Flags themselves. But Cedar Point or Cedar Fair seems to be more transparent about what they're doing, for my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it's partly, a lot of the phrasing you see is like Cedar Fair acquiring uh Six Flags, and I think it's almost more that like Six Flags there is getting offloaded to Cedar Fair.
yes,
I don't think that they're in a position to run it to its full potential. They know it. I think they've had like a few different CEO swaps in the last few years. So I think the people, the powers that be were ready to be done with it and to hand it off to somebody else.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, yeah. You mentioned the changing of CEOs like recently. Like, yeah, I think in the last like 5 years they've had like maybe three come in and out the door. Like one of them not even lasting like a full year, more or less like 6 months. But yeah, definitely it's the upkeep that Six Flags needs to be better at, especially with all the IPs they have. Like again, the Looney Tunes and DC Comics, just that upkeep, that general upkeep, just isn't there, and it shows. It shows like there's videos here and there about like Superman the ride not working, or them having to completely close off a coaster just because they don't have the manpower to either upkeep it or to run it. So I think this merger is going to be help on that maintenance side. However, I am kind of worried that you might see those cannibalizations of those parks, especially since that they're going over by like Cedar Point with that merger is more or less they're going underneath the Six Flags name. However, none of the Cedar Point or Cedar Fair parks are going to change their names automatically to Six Flags. It's just more or less with the stock holding less the stock side. It's going to be Six Flags with underneath the Fun Company.
The Fun Company. Um,
The
I
Fun
hope
Company.
yeah,
I hope it stays the fun company. But if it goes the way Six Flags is going, it won't be so fun.
It'll be the Dun Company.
Yeah, for sure.
Terrible joke. I'm
yeah.
sorry about that.
I'm I'm hoping to be optimistic just because Looney Tunes and DC are such big ticket IPs, and that's not filling those out is really just leaving money on the table. Like piles and piles of money just sitting on the table, nobody's touching it
They're all in the Acme
because
bags.
they
Yeah, for
exactly,
sure.
because they cannot get their business together and make a Gotham land.
Yeah. And I just know Cedar Point's ready just to deal out money in the parks because I know for Kings Island, they've did some basic maintenance on the Adventure Express, which is kind of like a kiddie coaster adventure, Indiana Jones house theme ride. They've spruced that up, put in some new show lights and things like that, and then they did a similar thing what they did at Knott's Berry Farm. They put in like a Central America, Latino, Mexican style plaza with all the different variety of foods and whatnot, and all those bright, vibrant colors. And then Kings Island with the Beast, they added like an extra foot and a half, 2 feet to make that ride smoother, and also extend on the longest wooden coaster in the world. But
Got to keep those world records.
exactly, that's one thing that you look at Cedar. Well, now that Cedar Point's acquired some more stuff or whatever, they if they would have got it, whatever 10 years earlier, they would have had the only looping wooden coaster at Kings Island, the longest wooden coaster, the park with the most wooden track, and things like that. I mean, Cedar Point's definitely is a roller coaster company, and they're going to double down on it maybe with Six Flags, and then with all because you got what Goliath is pretty good. What's that out in Magic Mountain? West Coast Racers,
Yeah, West Coast
and
Racers.
then
Yeah.
what Six Flags over Texas has that Wonder Woman one, or is that Magic Mountain as well? It's
I
that
couldn't.
it's single. I know it's a single rail coaster. I know that.
I,
Um,
I I couldn't tell you. Like the only Wonder Woman property I remember seeing out of the six was at Magic Mountain. I think it was the Last Low Truth, where it's just like a cyclotron where you're just sitting on, and you're just praying to God you don't throw up or fall.
Yeah, I remember even as, a kid going to Six Flags and being impressed with things. Um and this was before I ever went to someplace like Disney World. I did not go to Disney World for the first time until I was 16. And looking at something like the Batman coaster at Six Flags New England and thinking like, okay, this is a cool coaster. What's it got to do with Batman? It really is just a roller coaster that they spray painted black. No, it's an off the shelf thing that they plopped into the park and said Batman. So when I think about theming, like that's not what I want. I want, if you're going to use an IP to sell your product, and your product in this case is your park, your ride, your food, your merch, whatever, then it should make sense. You can't just, slap a sign on something and say it's themed now. Like that's not how theming works. It's lazy. And I think it's primarily the kind of theming that Six Flags has done with these monster IPs that they could do so much more with. So it's really a waste in a lot of ways. So I really hope to see that pick up. But I can't imagine that this merger would have happened unless there was a plan for these parks and for these properties, because one thing that I think we can universally agree on is that if a theme park dies, that land is dead land. You may as well salt the earth, because trying to renovate anything or build anything over where a theme park was is a nightmare.
Oh,
Like we
definitely.
we know how long it took for the Six Flags in New Orleans to get, dismantled and enough for somebody to actually purchase and decide to build something on it. Like that is so much work that it's barely even worth doing for any person looking to buy a piece of land that a theme park is on if that theme park closes. So they've got to have a plan, because the plan can't be, well, I guess we leave them to rot in the middle of the woods.
I mean, what are we, the Walt Disney Company? With so many undeveloped projects.
What was the water park in the middle of the island?
River
Yeah,
Country.
River
Yeah,
Country.
but
Yeah.
at least they already own their land.
River Country, and they own the land, but it's like cool. It's River Country. Cool. We're scrapping it. It's going away. Stays there for like a decade. Great, friends. We have another DVC resort
Yeah,
coming on
but
the way, and it's there. Nothing's happened.
at least that's like their own land. They're screwing up and redoing things on their own land rather than, Six Flags New England. Sorry to keep going back to this one. It's just the one that's at the top of my mind. But it is a huge parcel of land in the middle of a New England suburb. So, like that's an enormous amount of land to just say, well, we can't run this anymore. Enjoy your dead roller coasters, neighbors and friends. Uh, it becomes a much bigger problem. That's part of why the New Orleans land took so long to get to a point of redeveloping because people live there. It's something that like they've got to be conscious of, and I don't think that this merger would have happened unless they had something in mind.
I don't know. I just have to do something with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you see like entire POV of rides, or even like the person whoever's filming it, like walk through the queue, and you see the DC stuff. It's just like a giant thing. So it's like Superman, a picture of Superman, and like lettering or whatever, and that's it. And you just like rails on each side until you get to the station, to the load station, and that's it. There's
Yeah.
no like I'm not expecting to go
It's
like
colored like Superman. It's got Superman colors.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
makes it Superman.
I don't expect him to go all out and be like Forbidden Journey, Harry Potter's Forbidden Journey, where you're walking through the castle and everything.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, I don't expect it to be like that. But just give me something to look at for like a little bit,
Yeah,
I
I mean
know.
the Hulk coaster is almost that, like it's just a green coaster that's real big.
Mhm.
Because the Hulk is green and real big. But you've got a nice queue in there. You've got some good music that they've really put some thought into. They've got the big gamma ray tube. Like I
Which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't.
yeah, genuinely the Jolly Ranchers flashback coaster at Hershey Park is better themed than Superman the Ride.
Well, I mean, the one time Six Flags tried to, and I believe this was Six Flags. The one time they tried to do that was the Dark Knight coaster they had there. That was more or less themed around the Nolan Dark Knight movie and stuff. Where Q is impressive, but literally it's a Wild Mouse coaster at the end of the day. It's like, here we go. You're on a subway with Batman. Where's Batman? He's here somewhere. He's dark. Dark Knight. There you go. It's
It
entertaining.
was
The
it was
secret
at Six
is
Flags
your
Great
Batman.
America or Great Adventure.
There we
Yeah.
go. Okay, I was right with this being a Six Flags.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the POV now.
I think you see Batman for like 2 seconds, and it's like the last thing you see on the ride.
Yeah, the video's only like a minute long too. So it's
Yeah, it's the barnstormer of DC rides.
yeah.
Hey, don't mock the Barnstormer.
Hey,
Yeah,
it is technically
Dude.
the fastest ride in Disney World.
So there's an indoor launch coaster at Kings Island called Flight of Fear, and that was like before they. This was the thing before I think it was before Paramount even owned them. That this was like a wealthy run. You go inside, there's a whole story about the spaceship crash and the politicians and all this. They want to build like a roller coaster inside this spaceship, and that's like the whole thing. Like, so lights are going off. There's videos showing the people in like basically like a 1990s Skype call or whatever kind of thing, and that was like my first taste of immersion. I'm like, wow, this is cool.
And it doesn't have to be complicated to make it clear that there's effort. Like I said, the Hulk
Mhm.
coaster isn't that complicated. It's a really good coaster. It's got the gamma tube and the good music. But like that's enough effort to make it really
Yeah, because
exceptional.
you more or less want to theme. You want to make sure that you have a cohesion between what your theme is for the queue and both the ride itself. I know that specifically for roller coasters, it is hard to theme that because you are traveling at more or less 60 miles per hour, sometimes 70. So you're not going to see everything like you're not going to be like giving a long take of something. So I understand that you can like loosen a little bit on scenic things that you want to see during the ride, but make that cohesion between the queue and the actual ride itself. There should be some like overlap saying, "Hey, here we can go." Like you keep on saying for Hulk, I'm going to say it for like Hagrid's. Hagrid's is beautifully themed and stuff, and it's a very simple ride, minus that little drop at the very end.
I think one of my favorite kind of themed basics is Doctor Doom's Fear Fall, because it's just a drop tower, and you can see drop towers everywhere. You can go to any other like smaller amusement park in Florida and see a drop tower. You can go to Canopy Lake Park in New Hampshire and see the world's tiniest drop tower. Um, but they take what is essentially just a plain old drop tower and theme it so spectacularly, not only by the sort of decor on the ride itself, but they give you a reason that you're on the ride. They give you a reason that it is associated with Doctor Doom. It's not just the color, it's that Doctor Doom needs to, suck out your fear juice, and this is how he's going to scare you to do it. Like, there's a reason for the ride to be themed to him, for that ride specifically. Like, having any kind of story, any reason that the ride is associated with that character or that story or that property, like, that storytelling piece is so important. And that's, I think, really, really what's missing in a lot of those DC rides is like, yeah, you've got the color scheme, you've got the signage, but like, where's the story? Why are we here?
But yeah, no, like when it kind of what we're saying about DC and theming in with Doctor Doom's story is such a basic, easy story. It's nothing long, drawn out. You need like 15 pages. It's just like, hey, he needs to power this thing. He needs to suck the fear juice out, and that's it. It's a simple story. It's easy to understand. It's quick and to the point. That's all you
I'm
need.
so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm laughing so much with the fact that we're saying sphere juice. That's I'm sorry.
I just imagine
It's
like the Monsters Inc. tubes is what I'm imagining, except green.
Fear
someone
juice
get Randall on the
important.
phone.
Yeah. Mike
Listen, if that's
Wazowski.
what makes that's what makes the storytelling work, then that's what makes the storytelling work.
Exactly. It's something so goofy, but it's easy. It's easy.
Yeah, it's so
That's
simple to do. It's just the effort, and it's the respect for your audience to say, like, I know you that you want something to kind of hang on to. But Six Flags is very much about the like, give them the minimum, they'll be fine.
just throw up the Superman banner and we'll be good.
Spirit Halloween the ride.
It's kind of what it feels like sometimes, really.
Honestly, that would be great. I would ride it 17 times. That sounds fantastic.
Just find an indoor dark ride with cheap skeletons.
Well, they did make a movie about it.
Yeah.
Alrighty, and with that, we have reached the end of our general track talk. Now, what I like to do at the end of every single episode of If You Can Dream It is a little segment I like to call Blue Sky Pitches. Now, normally with that, when we're actually up and running, Blue Sky Pitches will be a randomizer where basically we'll be given a random theme out of a hat, whether it's an IP or a mood, and we'll have to create an attraction around it. But since we are still in the testing phase of this podcast and everything, I'm just going to ask you guys, if you could build any attraction, what would you build it to?
Oh man.
Ooh.
I'm a sucker for dark rides because they're always very well themed. But just trying to think of like a very good original. Oh, I want to say like I like an indoor targeting like Space Ranger spin or something like that. That kind of style.
So like the shooter games a lot?
Yeah. Without screens.
With
Without
no screens, so
No
all
screens.
physical sets?
Yeah. Maybe a screen here or there, but not where screens outnumber physical sets. I don't
Sort
know.
of like those old time like shooting games where you shoot at like the target on a dummy.
Yeah, kind of like the old shooting galleries or whatever, something like that. Except you get little lasers. Um, Oh, I don't
Oh,
know.
I like that. That does sound more fun than the screen version.
Yeah, it makes you appreciate it a little bit more. Um, as for like what property or I don't know. I feel like I mean I don't know what Epic Universe what that because I think the was it Frankenstein's castle or whatever, Doctor Frankenstein, whatever thing they're building over there. I
Yeah.
think that's a
Hmm.
like a Omni mover like, but I don't know if it's like a haunted mansion or if it's like a Space Ranger spin. But I feel like you get that and you're shooting all the classic Universal monsters. I think that'd be cool.
Shooting them like a Van Helsing ride almost.
Yeah, yeah, like a Van Helsing ride. Yeah,
So like you're Van Helsing in training, and you're just shooting monsters.
yeah. Just go through. Creature from the
With
Black
a
Lagoon.
laser
Got him.
crossbow. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, laser crossbow. There we go.
Laser crossbow. That's awesome. I love that. Now are we talking like the Hugh Jackman
Yes, Hugh
Van
Jackman. Yeah,
Helsing?
Hugh Jackman and Van Helsing.
Nice.
Yes, bring it back.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
I do have an answer for this question because my longtime dream for Dino Land USA in Disney's Animal Kingdom has been to replace it with a South America theme in the way that Africa and Asia have their own lands. I think South America deserves its own land. So when that was like semi announced, sort of, I was very excited because I want a capybara enclosure and I want it now. But what I would want to do specifically with the dinosaur track is to, instead of, a plain old museum building, we get a Mesoamerican pyramid. Not like kind of like the Mexico Pavilion pyramid, but a little further south, like slightly different. Not quite Chichen Itza, a little more Cusco, because we're gonna theme it for Emperor's New Groove.
Heck
Yes.
yes.
And it's, the idea of the roller coaster being themed for the pull the lever cart ride
Hmm.
is not new, but I think there's a way to combine that with kind of opening up using those characters for a new adventure story, like similar to Indiana Jones, but taking place in this sort of ancient Peruvian, ancient Aztec combo thing that they have going on in that movie, and giving them a new adventure where you can, go through the mountains and the rivers and all of the places that you see in the film. And I don't know what they're trying to find. Maybe they're trying to find the poison bottle. They're looking for something, but I think you could craft a new story there pretty simply. Use the same track and just build the sets around it. And then you could then you can pet llamas when you leave.
So you have capybaras and llamas that you can pet. So a petting zoo. There we go.
Exactly, yes. So
What?
the South American petting zoo with capybaras and llamas, like there's nothing wrong with this plan. The other thought that I had was if they were going to use Indiana Jones, then to have the Jeep go back in time, which it already does, except we're going to ancient South America and we're looking for the lost city of gold.
So you want to bring a little bit of Dial Destiny into into
Exactly. Yes. So it's still an Indiana Jones ride, which they did kind of mention. And I think an El Dorado hunt is makes the most sense for the space that they're considering. And I think South America makes so much more sense, partly because it is such a rich area of flora and fauna for them to work with. And like just from a purely land and animal standpoint. And there's a lot of cultural reference to draw from, just like they did for Africa and Asia, kind of distilling certain areas of the continent down to these smaller spaces. And that's essentially what they did with Pandora, except they just made it up. Was take a culture and give it a land. It's just an alien culture. So doing that for South America, I think it makes the most sense.
Oh yeah,
I
definitely.
plus the capybaras, but
Always
I
gotta do it for the copies.
but yeah, I would love to see an Emperor's New Groove theme in the dinosaur building with the lovely Mesoamerican pyramid. I think more feasible is a an Indiana Jones City of El Dorado thing, but I still want the Mesoamerican pyramid.
Hey, I mean, you might get it with the concept art they did show off, because in that concept art it did look like very Mesoamerican ish. So I can see that happening, where it might be like an El Dorado thing, if not, because as much as I love Indiana Jones Adventure over in Disneyland, uh that ride, that if they bring the mechanics back, they need to bring over what they currently have over in the Asian parks, because it works so much better over there. I just I just don't want a Mara with its eye falling out. Here's hoping it is Indy, because that would fit so well. Not to mention be more Indy in the park, because I'm a Indy stan. I love Indy. I'm so sad that the only Indy representation we have over in here in the Orlando is the Sun Show. It's a good show, but it's very long in the tooth, and this
Mhm.
would be rejuvenate Indy.
Yeah. Well, he did just have his first movie in over a decade, so
And it didn't
he's
do well.
Still haven't
uh,
seen it.
listen, there's
oh,
still time.
it's
He's
Oh, I'm starting to watch it regardless, though.
Indiana Jones is timeless.
it's very timeless. It's a
I
very timeless thing.
just turned the dial back a little.
Yeah.
Turn it all the way back to the 1970s, 80s.
Yeah. Let's just was it 2012 or let's go before that.
So way before 2008, because I think
Is that when it
2008
came
was
out?
when Crystal Skull was out.
Okay, yeah, then go back before that. Yeah.
So early 2000s. There
Although,
we go.
Yeah.
Crystal Skull, lots of ties to South America. We could get a Crystal Skull ride. Not out of the
Uh,
realm of possibility.
That is true, but
but if we did, I'd laugh the entire time. I would not take it serious.
but the thing is that they I want to say it's the it's not I think it's Shanghai. Shanghai has it where their Forbidden Eye is actually called Temple of the Crystal Skull. So there you go. It's a little bit better for
Yeah,
that use of that crystal skull. No aliens, I swear.
yeah. Well, Disney, if you're listening and you want ideas, I think El Dorado is the way to go. It would be so shiny. You would love it.
Alrighty, so just to recap our ideas that we had this session for our blue sky pitches, we had a Van Helsing, Hugh Jackman era shooter with laser crossbows, and we had Capybara Town and Indiana Jones.
Yes, Capybara Town, obviously the winner.
Just rename, just there you go. It's a very easy name change. Just rename Dinoland to Capybara Town, USA. There you go. Disney, you're welcome. All right, friends. And with that, we have reached the conclusion of our episode of If You Can Dream It. Roxanne and Stogie, I want to thank you guys so much for coming on to this podcast today.
Oh, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Thanks for the invite. It was fun.
You're welcome. Now, before we go, is there anything else you guys would like to shout out?
So I'm going to shout out wherever you are, listeners. Support your local makers and artisans this holiday season. Shop local.
Yep, Small Business Saturday is coming up soon. So, yeah, support your local artisans. Thank you once again for listening to If You Can Dream It. Until next time, friends, we'll see you guys in the queue.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand clear of the doors.